Hello, welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today is a special edition. It is a live review of Queen of Versailles, which I just saw moments ago. I went to opening night. It was supposed to start at 6. It always starts late. We started like 6:25, and then afterwards, the producer and Kristin and Michael Arden, the director, all spoke about how happy they were and how thankful they were for the cast and all the people who worked to put a new musical on Broadway. So this is a big musical. It's a big cast, big sets. I mean, it's Versailles, right? Everything's supersized in this show. I haven't had a chance to really process this other than the 5-minute racing back to get here. So the show, I don't know. Going into this, I didn't know anything about it other than the fact that Kristin Chenoweth is in it, and that was and I knew that Stephen Schwartz was writing the score, and I might have known that Michael Arden was directing, but it slipped from my mind. And so I really didn't know anything about it. This show is based on a documentary about Jackie Siegel and her husband David and their 11 dogs and their 7 kids, although only one dog is present in this show, and 1 kid and 1 cousin. The rest of the kids are conveniently off stage for the rest of the show. So it really just has a small cast of principals in this. You've got her parents, Jackie's parents, you've got Dave and his son, and then you've got Jackie's daughter and Jackie's niece, who comes in almost at the end of Act 1 to live with the Siegels. So what is this about? This is based on a documentary, and it's about this woman who, I believe from New York, upstate or something, who just has a dream. She wants to become rich. And she works really hard, but isn't able to make it happen. And then she gets married to a guy, and he's a louse, and he is abusive to her. She leaves him. She's pregnant with their child, who is Victoria, who is the child that is in the show, her firstborn. And a friend of hers invites her to this fancy party because she wants her to meet this rich guy. This rich guy turns out to be David Siegel, who's a good 20, 30 years her senior. They hit it off, and they get married, and she instantly attains her dream and becomes a billionaire, or married to a billionaire. And she goes on her first trip away from the United States, and she goes to France, and she sees the Palace of Versailles, and she loves it so much. She's like, I wish we had this. And Dave's like, well, I'll build it for you. And so they come back to the US, and in Orlando, Florida, they start building the largest home in America. And she dubs herself the Queen of Versailles. And of course, this is early 2000s. And she has, apparently, I guess she had 6 more kids with David. And I don't want to give it too much away, but we know what happens in 2008. The stock market crashes, there's the housing bubble bursts, and so she does fall on hard times. And that basically takes us through the first act. And then the second act is them rebuilding after having lost all this money. But so what's interesting about this show is it really deals with themes about wealth inequality, what it means to be rich. Are people happier when they're poor? Or are they happier when they're rich? What are some of the problems that come with being rich? Getting everything a good thing? Well, as you can guess, it's not really. So I think the themes are really interesting in this show. I'm reading some of these comments and trying not to let them to affect me. So I'll get back to these comments after I get through my thoughts here about the show. So what this show has going for it, well, first of all, the issue, if I was a writer working on this show, I'd look at the problems. The problems is it's based on a documentary, and documentaries are not about plot. They're not about interesting narratives. They're about interesting characters. And with F. Murray Abraham, I love to mispronounce names, and Kristin Chenoweth, Kristin Chenoweth, these two actors are character actors. So they bring characters to this. I'm never disappointed with Kristin Chenoweth, not disappointed in her in this. She's a star and she's engaging. And when she's on stage, I am happy to listen to her and watch her and see what comic shtick she's going to come up with. And I got to say, vocally, she sounds great. She's a soprano, so that she can bring her chest voice up very high, and then she mixes it with her head voice a little bit. It sounds like belting to me, as far as I'm concerned. She's singing high and loud and belty. And we do get some nice soprano moments in the show as well. It actually does. It really interesting about the show is it keeps echoing back to like the 1700s, when Versailles was originally built by the Sun King, King Louis. And it kind of, so we get that kind of music. So I found that interesting to juxtapose those two kinds of music. This hair is driving me crazy. Where is it? There we go. Okay. So that's what the play is about. And the second act is about her. It's usually the story is boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl. This is girl gets house, girl loses house, girl gets house. Essentially is this story, which I think is emotionally difficult to connect with. A rich woman wanting a house. And it does, she basically is losing her daughter in the process. And so that's where the heart of the show is that she's wanted to give this baby that was born, that her abusive husband is the father for this child. He leaves the picture, but that she was sleeping in an apartment that she couldn't even afford a bed. She was sleeping on a sleeping bag in this tiny apartment with the baby in the crib. And she says she was happy then. And so it's about this woman who has this dream to become rich, but it's not really bringing her happiness. So I think the theme of the show is really fascinating. The difficulty of this, as I mentioned already, it's based on a documentary. The difficulty here is structurally, the whole first act really feels like a lot of exposition. The opening number feels like it's not really setting up the world so much as it's introducing all the characters to us. The name of that song, is it important? It's something like Because We Can. And, they're in the midst of building this dream house. And then we flash back to 1700s France. And then we flash back to our lead character, Jackie, when she was 17 years old and living with her parents. And let me silence this. Okay. All right. So that's what it's about. Should we jump into bored and confused? The pressing questions. So was I bored? I'm going to say I was not bored because Kristin is on stage. And if Kristin's on stage, I cannot be bored. Was my heart palpitating for this narrative? No. The narrative, to me, the first act was a lot of just chronologically, we see her building the house, but then we flash back and it's chronologically going from 17 till she meets Dave until we get to the building of the house, basically. We just chronologically go through that. And normally when you write a show, the adage is take your character, put your character up in a tree, throw rocks at your character, get your character out of the tree. And this character was never in a tree for me. She was never in a situation where, until the end of the first act, when the bubble bursts and they lose all this money and her husband's like, we're going to have to put the Versailles up for sale. Then now she's up in a tree. So now I'm interested, but now I have to go drink my $20 glass of wine and then come back for Act 2. And Act 2 starts out with a burst of energy because she's got chutzpah and she's having to sell off all these beautiful things, Fabergé eggs and all these the crazy things that she bought for this house to try to make enough money to try to save the house. And that's exciting. But, and this isn't really a spoiler alert because we know that the government bailed out the banks. And so really rich people basically got bailed out by the government. So she's up in a tree for a very short time, and then she's out of the tree again, and we're back with the house. And then she also has some the most dramatic thing that happens to the show is her daughter is feels like she's not good enough for her mother. She's not pretty enough. But we don't get a lot of scenes. We get scenes of the daughter singing about how she doesn't feel loved or she doesn't feel like she's ever going to be good enough, but we don't get a lot of scenes between Jackie and her daughter. And when the show ends, they give Kristin a big song called This Time Next Year. And I think it's, supposed to be like Rose's turn. It's supposed to be her reckoning. And it's emotional and it's got big belty notes. But because we didn't have that relationship with the daughter, Gypsy, the whole show is about the relationship between Louise and Madame Rose. So my main criticism for this show is that it never got me by the heart. It never grabbed me. It was always separate. And I think the reason for this is the structure of the show, because it's based on a documentary. Plus, you've given me a character where she's likable because she's being played by Kristin Chenoweth. But what she's doing, spending all this money to create a house that she doesn't really need, I can't root for that. I can root for Madame Rose wanting her daughters to be stars because she's doing it for her children. But the question is, why is she keeps saying she's making this house for her family, but it's clearly not for her family. So I think they were trying to give us a Rose moment, but didn't really work for me. There's a lot going on in this show. There's a lot of characters, and I don't think it's really I don't think it's really decided what it needs to be yet. And this also goes for the score as well. Love Stephen Schwartz. But the score for this did not feel of a piece. It felt like a lot of different kinds of songs. And in fact, like the first song that Kristin sings has got a country feel to it, which I thought, great. It's Kristin, she's from Oklahoma, but we're in Florida. And I know that Florida is in the South, but I know that one was light country, so I kind of went with it. But there was a big country song for David F. Murray Abrams' character called "The Ballad of the Timeshare King," and it was country western, and it's set in Florida. And for me, I'm just like, country western Florida, it just doesn't feel right to me. I don't know. I'd rather Latin music. If they're in Miami, well, they're Orlando. So the score really bounces around. Sometimes it's for the young daughters, it's for the daughter and for the cousin, it's very more pop sounding. And then there's very musical theater, and then there's country, and there's country western. The score just kind of feels all over the place. And then we go to France, and we've got like, whatever that period was, the 1700s. Is that Baroque music? I don't know. We got harpsichord music. So not bored, but a little not really engaged as well, other than my love for Kristin kept me engaged. If it had been someone else, I probably would have gotten bored because I'm not really invested in these characters. Confused. Was I confused? There was just one spot where they get their money back because of the government bailout. And then they somehow went to Vegas, and something was going on in Vegas. And then this daughter has been left by herself. And it's a weird moment because we feel ominous that something bad is going to happen with the daughter. At least I felt, because she's climbing up these stairs and there's no ending to the stairs. I'm like, is she going to fall off the edge there? It's poetic. And so I was a little confused about what was happening in that scene. That was just a short moment. Otherwise, I followed the big jumps back to the 1700s. I always understood what we were doing. I don't know if I understood why we were doing it. I was confused by some of the song choices. Doing country western, which felt like a weird choice for Florida. So those were the confusions. The sound design was pretty good. This is in the St. James, which is like almost 2,000 seats. It's one of the largest Broadway houses. And this is a huge show, so it belongs in this theater. The sound design was a little echoey, and I felt like the band, the orchestra, was a little bit overpowering some of the vocalists. I missed a little bit of the vocals, although it was interesting. I do have to say, for the Tatum Grace Hopkins and Nina White, who play Victoria and the other girl, Jonquil. No wonder I can't remember her name. Jonquil. Nina plays Victoria and Tatum plays Jonquil. For some reason, I understood them perfectly. They had more of a pop sound, but I understood them. Go figure. It's usually the opposite, right? Kristin's pretty easy to understand, but there were moments. Okay. Sound design, set design is amazing. Costume design is amazing. Should we say their names? Say their names. Costume, Christian Cowan had a lot of fun. Natasha Katz did the lighting design. Sound design, Peter Helensky. Hair and wigs, Cookie Jordan. Those were all great. Scenic design and video design, Dane Laffrey. Oh, do we want to talk about videos? So videos, because this is based on a documentary and the camera crews were like shooting her, and they've bought this huge TV screen for their Versailles home, they occasionally show things on the video screen. Normally, I don't love this, but because it was way up in the balcony, yes, balcony. Oh, we'll get into that. Because it was in the balcony, I kind of appreciated the moments where we had just a moment where I could see the character's face really big just for a minute to kind of ground me and be like, oh, yeah, that's the actor I thought it was. But they didn't, I was okay with the video usage. They didn't sit on it for too long. It was just kind of, they didn't like, we didn't do a whole song with the video on. It was just little moments. And like when she was on QVC or she was doing a commercial for coffee. So actually the video design didn't bother me. Okay, let me get in. So wrapping this up, and then I'll look at these comments. Not bored, but not fully invested. A little confused about some of the song choices and some of the narrative arc, but not confused with actually what was going on. So to wrap it all up, I think the show feels like it's still being developed. And it's a tough, adapting a documentary. That's tough. It's really a tough assignment. I don't know of many other, the other one, the one about the kids with autism, it also had struggled from that. This show also reminded me of Tammy Faye in many regards, in that we've got characters that they're telling us we're supposed to like, but we're not sure if we like them. And then they become rich and then they lose everything. And we're like, do we feel bad for them? I don't know. It had a lot in common with that. And in fact, I always thought that Kristin Chenoweth actually would have made a really good Tammy Faye. All right. So tickets, I was press rep for this show, kept me dangling. They were like, we might be able to give you a press ticket. And I just finally gave up. And a couple of days ago, I bought a ticket on Today Tix. I think it was $55. I prefer the balcony in the St. James Theater to the rear mezzanine, because the rear mezzanine is just so far back and it just feels claustrophobic. And so I got a ticket all the way over on the side on the aisle so that I could look down the aisle and I wouldn't have to worry about any heads. The rake of the balcony is great in the St. James. So yes, I wish I was closer just to see more of Kristin, but I find the balcony seats in the St. James to not be so bad. So for $50, wasn't bad. Yeah, and I got the cheapest seat. And I think I got the side because it's only like 3 rows back. And that seat was great on the aisle. Fantastic. So Go support Kristin and all these hardworking actors. I mean, if Kristin is in something, I'm going to go see it. So if you love Kristin Chenoweth, um, go for it for her, because she's great in this. And there is a lot to like about this show. I just compared it to Tammy Faye. The craft of this show is so much better than Tammy Faye. When I saw Tammy Faye, it felt like Elton John phoned in the score. This one, I actually feel that Stephen Schwartz is there. He's also, honestly, I find that he's a better musical theater writer than Elton John. I mean, come on, that's his bread and butter. So I'm happy to hear a new Stephen Schwartz score. And yeah, and go see it for the fancy costumes and the light. There's not a lot of dancing in this show. I would like more dancing. I like dancing. All right. So thank you for watching this live review. I'm going to now answer some questions or read these comments, see if there are any questions. Let's see what the peoples have to say. All right. It's good. I think the queen of their sign is just style over substance. There is more style than there is substance. But I think there is substance there. The ideas that I talked about earlier in this review, I think there is a very interesting idea here about poor people becoming wealthy and trying to fill some kind of hole, or trying to think they're going to be happy when they have this mansion, and then they're going to be happy, and it's not true. And I think that's really interesting. The problem is, how do you make this character, how do you give them a goal and a quest that we as an audience can really support? That's the hard thing about this show. Someone was really bored and did not enjoy. Why were you bored? Probably because you weren't invested in the characters, and I completely understand that. I completely get that. I was invested in Kristin. I was invested in the actor more than I was in the character. It's true. It was such an odd choice to adapt for the stage. It was interesting, in the curtain speech, the lead producer brought this story to Michael Arden, and Michael thought it felt like a good idea, so they went ahead with this. And, if they can turn the signing of the Declaration of Independence into a musical, I feel like you can with everything, but they haven't solved the problem of having ostensibly an unlikable character that we have to spend 2.5 hours with. One way you fix that is you make it an incredibly likable actress like Kristin Chenoweth. But if this show is going to go on after she leaves, or when it goes into regional theaters, you need a show that the writing makes us care for this character. And I didn't think it really achieved that. Along with this, was there any conflict? How was the source material? The source material, I haven't seen the documentary, but what it felt like the first act was the documentary, because at the end, in the second act, she's all excited because she's going to go see the documentary at Sundance. So I assume the majority of the second act is based on her real life. Some things happen that are pretty tragic that I don't think they would make up about real people. So I assume they were true. The conflict is, there is no conflict in the first act, other than this exposition of her having an abusive husband, but that's solved in a montage. So that's the big problem. There's not a lot of conflict until they lose all their money, or a big chunk of they become not billionaires anymore. Oh, sad millionaires. That's when there's conflict. And then in the second act, we do have a nice conflict between Jackie and her daughter, because her daughter kind of comes to realize that she hates being wealthy, and she doesn't like the house, the Versailles. She doesn't care about that. She has a moment where she visits Jackie's parents, her grandparents, and she's like, I like this. I just want to live in a small house. which was that. So that moment with her daughter was touching. That's probably the most heart I felt was in that moment in the show. By the way, shout out to Stephen DeRosa, who was in Boop. He plays Jackie's father, and Isabel Keating plays Jackie's mother. The entire cast was great. There's not a lot of leads in this. Greg Hildreth, I just saw as Amos in Chicago. I pointed him out in my review of Chicago. Really liked him. Liked him here. There's a little bit of conflict between Jackie's daughter and her niece, but it's resolved pretty quickly. So yeah, that is the problem. We really need a Louise and Mama Rose moment where Louise is constantly trying to get the love of her mother, and her mother's so focused on making her a star or focusing her energy on the other girl that she's ignoring her. We really needed that. I think the show's trying to do too much. I mean, the musicals that really get you is when it's really based on two people, whether it's romantic interest or mother and daughter, if you can really focus on a relationship between two people. And this felt like a woman's relationship with her house. I think that's the issue. Okay, and Rose's daughter did become stars. One even had her own town. Take that, Jackie. Oh, do you know what happens to Jackie's daughter? It's not nice. Okay, did I like the Carrie stairs? Did. I mean, I feel like, when you've got a queen needs a staircase. And that set, the Versailles set, the ballroom at the end was great. Oh, by the way, what's crazy about this show too, is they're making digs at billionaires and political figures we might be familiar with who are also building ballrooms. They make digs at that, but it's so weird to have these characters who are the 1% and they're making digs at people who are just like them. And F. Murray Abraham even makes a dig about the fact that they got bailed out by the government. And he's like, no wonder this country's messed up, which is funny because I think the 1% love that this country is messed up because it keeps them rich. And, this show is trying to be about wealth inequality, but I don't think it really, I don't know what it's trying to say to us. I think the message I got out of it is that you can be happy without being wealthy. But our lead character chooses wealth in the end. All right. So yes, I love the Carrie. Grey Gardens, great example of a show that is based on a documentary. Although the issue I have with Grey Gardens is I don't like the first act. First act feels like something we just need to know her past. The second act of Grey Gardens is fantastic. And why is it fantastic? Because it's about two characters who love, and hate is a strong word, but two characters who love but don't want to be with each other anymore. It's such, again, mother and daughter relationship. Grey Gardens' second act works so good because it gets you in that. Oh, when she sings Another Winter in a Summer Town, and when she tries to leave and her mother calls for her back. Oh, so talk about not a happy ending, but Grey Gardens, I think, has a wonderful second act, but only the second act. Ghost support. Oh, okay, I'm calling you out. Mark Cuspid 7502. Yes, Kristin tweeted. I didn't want to have to get into this, but Kristin did get flack for her tweet about Charlie Kirk. But I took that tweet in trying to give comfort to Charlie Kirk's family, not trying to upset the people that Charlie Kirk marginalizes, attacks, makes feel less than. She should have just kept her mouth shut. But as a Christian, I think she felt some kinship with his family. So I don't think it was a good tweet, but I think that Kristin is trying to come from a place of love. it wasn't a savvy move, especially since she had to open a show on Broadway to even comment. I would have, if I were her, I would have kept a 10-foot pole, and if you wanted to express your condolences, write a letter to the wife and say, I'm so sorry about your loss. So I do hear you, but I still love Kristin, and she's allowed to make some mistakes, and I don't think her heart was in a bad place. And she did apologize for it. So I forgive her. Okay. Yeah. It's hard to sympathize with Jackie. I think Kristin makes everyone she's playing likable, but you're right. I mean, look at Glinda. Not a likable character, right? Very similar type character this. She's rich and privileged, but Kristin makes her likable. And she does, Glinda does have an arc. Not as big an arc as Elphaba, but she does have an arc. Oh, someone just said, so when I saw it in Boston, Kristin kept being very Glinda. She kept saying things that were thrust upon her. Did they take that out? No. They left the line about thrust upon her. She played it to the audience, was kind of like a wink, wink. You got that reference. But I ran into someone, Chuck, is that your name? I ran into someone who, and this happens a lot when I go to the theater. If you watch Bored and Confused and you like these videos, come say hi to me. Someone came up in the balcony and said hi to me and said he watches the videos. He said, I don't always agree with you. And I said, that's great. I don't expect people to agree with me. I'm not the expert. I just have thoughts that I like to share. But he said that he saw the preview of the show, and he said Kristin's performance had changed a lot for the better. So if you saw it in Boston and you felt she was being very Glinda, I think that's probably been taken out, because the only Glinda thing I saw was just the line, the reference about having something thrust, having power, success. I don't remember the line. Those wicked heads out there, the line thrust upon her. So the line's in there, but she's not acting like Glinda. There's no wands. There is a ball gown, though. A French one. Okay. Oh, did they say how long the development process was for the show? I don't know. That is a really good question. Shows normally take 7 years to come to Broadway, but when a producer brings an idea to a director and they get the star involved, that's usually 2 to 3 years. Should we ask our phones, or does someone know? Let's have my assistant look this up. How long was the development for Queen of Versailles Broadway musical? Let's see what AI tells us. Several years, with the process including developmental readings for several years before a pre-Broadway tryout in Boston in the summer of 2025. Well, several years to me is 3. I'll have to look up the better answer than several years, because thank you, ChatGPT. How long was intermission? I think I didn't time it, and I was chatting with people, but it felt like 20 minutes. And we started 25 minutes late, only because it's opening night. I'm sure it'll be 5 minutes after the hour moving forward. She did not come from a place from love. She showed who she really is. Okay. We're not going to go into that. Little Edie ended up with an okay ending in real life. That's good to know. Oh, okay. Coffee, 2 cocktails. I did not know that she said universities are cauldrons of indoctrination. I can't agree with that. You know why? I went to Brigham Young University. No, I can't agree with that. Actually, I take it back. Okay, let's turn it around. I agree with Kristin Chenoweth, because I went to a religious school. I went to Brigham Young University, and it was a cauldron of indoctrination. So I agree with her. My YouTube channel is a cauldron of indoctrination. trying to spread the gospel of being bored and confused. Okay, I get it. I'm a much more forgiving person. I also, with Patti LuPone's tweet, I didn't think it was great either, but I understood who she was. I know who she is. I get who she is. I don't know. Look, I've had lots of friends who have worked with Kristin Chenoweth. They said she's delightful. She's a sweetheart. And these people, my light. Actually, that's not so bad. Less shiny now. Let's just leave it off. Yeah, there's no, I can't. I need consistency in my life. I was a Boy Scout. So I have another battery. All right. So yeah, tea about KC. Oh my, I wonder if that has something to do with her low ticket sales. I don't know. It's interesting because people also commented on Little Bear Ridge Road, which I think is wonderful. But people were like, because Scott Rudin's involved with it, which, people, they think the ticket sales low for that. I don't know how I feel about Scott Rudin. Actually, he's much worse than Kristin Chenoweth. Oh, well, here's the deal. If you're upset with Kristin Chenoweth, don't go see Queen of Versailles, because that's the reason to go see it. There we go. I'll take a deep dive into all things Kristin Chenoweth, but I don't know if it'll sway my my love for her. And I'm not a religious person. I grew up Christian. I grew up Mormon, but I left it all behind. And I actually, I'm very sus, as the kids are saying, of very religious people. I'm always a little bit like, I'm always a little worried. I'm like, how deep are they into this imaginary friend? Okay, this is so chaotic. I know that this is the review. This isn't the review. For those of you who are still hanging out, I did the review for the first, what are we at, 40? For the first 15, 20 minutes, I did the review of the show. Now I'm just going through these comments and spouting off. So if you have a thought about the show that you want to share, I will echo it. The only God we worship here is Thespis. It is true. We all look for a religion, and for me, theater is my religion. For some people, it's Dionysus. They want to party and have alcohol. I also worship the gods of traffic. I don't know who that is, but you guys, I made it from the St. James home in like 7 minutes, which is crazy, because the gods of traffic and Thespis knew I had to be here at 9:30, and she made sure that I got here in time for this amazing live review. Okay, yes, join the chaos. You're right, Mr. B. Bunny. It is best to stay out of politics and stay out of religion. Although the Queen of Versailles does get political, as most theater does. So, also I just recorded, you guys, I saw 7 shows this week. I already posted Bat Boy, but I recorded, and I've only edited a couple of these, but these are, let's put these in the right order. Hold on, guys. Hold on. These are the shows in the order that I saw. These are the 6 shows that have left to come out. So 44 the musical is coming out next. Then we're doing Oedipus, or as I call Oedipus. If you're talking about being political, this one's going to get political. Then we got The Honey Trap at Irish Repertory Theater. Loved that. Rob Lake Magic. I got a press ticket. This wasn't on my list, but we'll talk about it. This was a new musical, The Seat of Our Pants, based on Skin of Our Teeth. This one I have. This is a long, if you want the rambling, this is a ramble. This one's a ramble. There's a lot to unpack on that one. And then Katsura Sunshine's Rakugo at New World Stages. And I think all of these, with the except of Oedipus, I bought a ticket. All of these were press tickets, guys. So that's why I'm just a girl who can't say no. If you give me a press ticket, I will probably see your show and make a video about it. Beggars can't be choosers. Okay. From one former Mormon to another, you totally get former Mormon vibes. Are my garments showing? I'm not wearing them. Thanks, Morning Star. Scorpio. Not only are we both Mormons, we are both Scorpios. Is your birthday coming up? Guys, mine is in 1 week. Next Sunday, my birthday. What are you getting me for my birthday? You know what? Okay, Jason Maddie. It says, interesting she chose to come back to Broadway in this. It's actually not surprising because this show is really suited for Kristin. And I think they also, by doing the jump back to the 1700s in France, it allowed her to use her head voice. But this character, a rich, attractive woman who came from humble circumstances, this role really fit Kristin. She takes characters that could be unlikable and makes them kind of endearing. So I really, she's all in pink, she's all dressed up, she likes nice things. This really felt like it doesn't surprise me that Kristin, I really wonder if Kristin was asked to do Tammy Faye. She had to have been asked. So I wonder why she didn't do that one. But I really felt Kristin this was a match for her. And I think Stephen also really vocally wrote it more for her. Hey, I didn't say this in the review, but there was a couple moments where the contemporary music theater mixed with the 1700s classical music. And I found that really interesting. And it only happened like once or twice. And I would have liked more of that. Because at least that gave the musical a distinct sound that it was kind of lacking. Okay. Yay for press ticks, let me tell you. 7 shows, Jason. I saw 7 shows this week. I've already posted Bat Boy. That was the first one. And then the next 6 are coming. And last week I did 5. It's getting a little crazy. I need to do the work on my other job. But all right. You must have the new sleeveless ones. The low-cut garments. Yeah, my mom's gonna love that I'm talking about garments on this if she watches it. I don't know if she'll watch the whole thing. Of course she will. Hi, Mom. Okay. Why isn't she doing Dolly musical? That would be a good choice. Oh, another thing I want to say that I like about Kristin. Kristin, she's not pretending like she hasn't had plastic surgery. I mean, this character gets a boob job, and Kristin kind of was just owning it. I don't know if she's had a boob job, but I wouldn't put it past her. She, in her curtain at the end, when they were all talking, she said she'd like to thank her doctors. And she listed 5 of them. So, if you can't laugh at yourself, who are you going to laugh at? But the Muppets. The Muppets was my favorite part, but you can watch the review of Rob Lake, The Muppets. I was there for The Muppets. I think Dolly is happening. It's I don't know if they have an out-of-town tryout scheduled, but I know they're developing it. Who's Tony competition? Kristin deserves a lead Tony. I mean, we're still in the fall season, and we haven't even had what musicals have there even been that have opened? So, by default, I should know this just by looking at, by default, who would be a Tony nom. At this point, the only thing I've seen really is Beetlejuice, which that's not going to get anything. And I think the only musical is Queen of Versailles. So yeah, as of now, Kristin Chenoweth is winning a Tony. You heard it here first. Honestly, I thought she should have won over Idina for Wicked. I think she should have won. The reason why is because dying is easy, comedy is hard. And yes, the Wicked Witch doesn't die, but she comes pretty close. All right, guys, I should wrap this up. I thank you. I think those who have stuck around, I appreciate it. Whose Tony Compson Kristin deserves a lead Tony or wanted? I don't know what that means. What's worse, Versailles or Redwood with Idina? Redwood was worse. Hands down, Redwood was worse because the craft, the people working on the craft of this show, part of the challenge Redwood had is it was a new composer and she was great, but Stephen Schwartz has written for musical theater. Michael Arden is a wonderful director. Although I'm going to say, I forgot that Michael Arden had directed this while I was watching it because it didn't have. He usually has these really great concepts. Look at maybe Happy Ending. Look at Parade. He has these really interesting concepts, and I didn't feel the concept in this show. Other than stairs, I think stairs were a big part of this. So I don't think this is going to go down. I don't know if he'll get a nomination for direction for this one. I don't think this will go down in one of his greatest directorial achievements. Okay, what's worse? So yeah, Redwood. Ooh, Redwood. Ooh. Redwood I found a very challenging show. Okay, but you know what? Watch the review for that. You'll see what I felt about Redwood. And I'm going to say this too. Idina was vocally struggling when I saw Redwood. Kristin sounds great. She's got a great, she has such control over her voice. Clearly she warms up. Yes, it was the opening night. I'm sure she wanted to sound great, but she's singing high and loud a lot in this show. And no cracks, no perfect pitch. She has perfect pitch. So she's always going to be on pitch. There was one long note she held that she then took a breath and then hit it again. And I went, you know what? You do what you need to do. Thanks for watching, Jason Maddie. Leah Michelle on chess could get the Tony nom. Really? Leah Michelle? We shall see. I saw Funny Girl. And she was fine. She was good. She was good. Leah Michelle doesn't she doesn't have that star power that she doesn't feel open to me. I feel a wall with her. That's just me. But maybe I hope she proves me wrong. I'm excited. I hope the new book for chess is amazing and works great with the existing score. KC was the concept. Kristin Chenoweth was the concept for this musical. Yeah, I'm sure they asked her to come on before they even started working on it. You liked Redwood more. Great. You like hugging trees. I will say that Redwood's score felt more of a piece than this score did. But there were a lot of ballads. Did it need a Che character? Did Queen of Versailles need a Che character? No, there was already too much going on. It needed fewer characters. Leah Michelle coming back in chess may challenge Kristin for the Tony. We'll see. Has Kristin won? Yes, she won the supporting already. The show had such an opportunity based on the story to really move an audience to have such an opportunity to do this and totally missed the point. Was truly disappointing. Yeah, I don't disagree. Charles Valiant 6148, who doesn't believe in punctuation. I agree. I felt like there is something there, and that's why I feel like the show just feels like it maybe is in process. I feel like they might be able to find something with the show, but again, I told you 7 years to develop shows, and this one, when they have a star involved, they're usually 2 to 3 years. It takes time to write a musical, guys. Let me tell you, my first show took 7 years, and it's still not on Broadway. And if it went to Broadway today, it would be 22 years in development. That's how old it is. Yeah. I still hope, though, it's not really a Broadway show, it's more off-Broadway. Okay. Oh, I'm just about done. Someone agrees that Leia seems unauthentic. I know it's a weird comment, but there's certain kind of actors who I feel are worried about how they look. And you would think Kristin would be someone who worries about how she looks because she's all about the hair extensions, but she's honest about the hair extensions. She's honest about having surgery. So she can laugh at herself. I don't know if Leia is a person who can really let down that wall and expose herself in a way that lets us see the cracks, lets us see that the humanity, which that's what theater's about. We'll see. I mean, I'm hopeful. I go into every show hoping it's going to blow my mind and be great. And sometimes my longest reviews are these shows where my hopes were high, but I'm let down a little bit. When I see a great show, my review is short because I just go, this is great. This is all great. This is great. Go see it. 1 minute review. It's the shows that are in between that just are the longest reviews, or the shows that really miss the mark. I can sometimes just go on forever with all the things I thought didn't work. All right, guys, I'm going to cut this off in 5 minutes. So we've done a full hour. And I appreciate, we've started losing people. We've reached our peak. We're now, lost another one. So let's wind this down. Kristin has pageant experience. Enough said. Oh, by the way, this character, Jackie, won Mrs. Florida. So there was a pageant moment in the show, and Kristin, of course, knew exactly what she was doing. And hi, I'm late. This is the review for Queen of Versailles, or is that still coming? I already did the review. I did the review for the first 15 to 20 minutes was my review. But just Robot Mary, I think you can go back to the beginning of the stream and watch the review. I'm also going to edit this down, so I might edit it down. I don't know. We'll decide. But we'll have it just as the review, which is the first 20 minutes. And but I can tell you right now, it was mixed. Ultimately, I said, go see the show for Kristin Chenoweth. If you like Kristin Chenoweth, she doesn't disappoint in this. She's the reason to go see the show. Otherwise, the show is uneven, and it's dealing with a documentary that's really difficult to turn into a musical because its lead character has potential to be very unlikable, but Kristin is likable. So it kind of works, but there's not enough conflict and drama going on. So it feels like a lot of exposition. It feels a lot about kind of just going along with real life. But that's the challenge of taking a story about a real person. It's difficult. Other than Grey Gardens, and I only like the second act of that show. I mean, I like the first act. I love the second act. But are there any other documentaries that have been great musicals? They're challenging because they're not narratively that interesting. Okay, I'm now becoming a broken record. The clock is ticking down. I may have to wrap this up early because I've run out of things to talk about. This is a really old shirt. I used to wear this. This was my audition shirt. And I still have it. And the color is getting a little. But I used to wear this bright blue shirt to auditions. It's probably older than some of you. This shirt's probably over 20 years old. If Miranda Priestley was here, she would tell me exactly when this color was chosen by those people in that room for me to wear to an audition. And I took my first headshots. I think we'll say probably wasn't my first headshots, but I did take some of my first headshots in this very shirt. And here's I'd have to edit this to put the photo in. All right. Oh, gosh, 44 of you are still here, and I want to talk for 2 more minutes. So let me talk about BYU, being Mormon. So Brigham Young University, I studied graphic design, was my major, but I auditioned for a lot of the shows, and I did a lot of the theater classes. There's one class where it was the first year in the music dance theater department, and they put on musicals for this class, and I was in so many of those. And so the people in the faculty they called me a closet MDT major. Foreshadowing. Because I was trying to be responsible, like graphic design is really responsible. You know, it was as responsible as I could be while still doing something that was artistic, because my whole life, if it's not artsy, I'm not interested in it. So yeah, I started out as an industrial design major. Then I hurt my knee dancing I was in the modern dance company, and I hurt my knee, and I couldn't. Industrial design is using a lot of mechanical lathes and jigsaws and stuff, and it was a lot of walking around the workshop. And I injured my knee, and I was like, I can't walk around. This is going to be really difficult. So I switched to graphic design so I could sit my big fat ass in front of a computer and learn how to do graphic design. If you want to know how old I am, we learned how to use Photoshop 2.0, the second version of Photoshop to come out. This was before layers were a thing. But then I did dance and theater on the side. I spent just as much time working on, so they should have given me an honorary theater and dance degree just for how much time I spent in dance classes and theater classes. All right. Oh, we're winding this down. Thank you so much for Rari Woodbury Dance Company and SLC. I used to be in that company. Crystal Rose, do I know you? Yes, I know Rari Woodbury. I went to the University of Utah. I performed with in a Rari Woodbury concert where they did a bunch of pieces, and I got to be in one. So wow, I was okay. We'll do a chat on the side. We've hit at 1 hour, so I'm gonna wrap this up. We'll do University of Utah talk another time. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this first of. We'll see. Let me know if you liked this live review of a show that I just saw while it's still fresh in my mind. It makes the editing easier, and I don't have to write a script, which I've kind of gotten rid of anyhow. So thanks again for watching. Please comment and let me know if I should do more of these. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you agree with. Tell me what you don't agree with. Tell me if you like my shirt. And I will see you all. Well, I won't see you, but you'll see me, and I'll see your comments. So I'll kind of see it. I'll see you all at the next one. Bye-bye.